All right, so let's get started. Hi everyone. My name is Candice Reeves, and I am the program manager for the NSF Energy Storage Engine in Upstate New York, specifically for the translation function. And I have my colleague Maya joining me today, who also works on operations for the engine. So together we're going to give you an overview of what the NSF Energy Storage Engine in Upstate New York is, and then give you an opportunity at the end to answer or to ask any questions. We'll use the Q&A function for questions. So throughout, please drop your questions or comments there, and then at the end, Maya and I will review those. So again, thanks for joining us. Um, so we'd like to start with talking about the Regional Innovation Engines program at large, which is a program run by the National Science Foundation, for those of you who don't know. It's an initiative that started about 2.5 years ago in February of 2024 by the NSF. And the idea of the Regional Innovations Program, there are nine engines in the initial cohort, is to bring economic development to certain areas of the country that would greatly benefit from it. But at the same time, these areas also had very promising clustering of innovation in certain industries. So from this map, you can see some of these engines are, for example, the Great Lakes engine focuses on water, or the regenerative medicine engine in North Carolina, the NSF fuel engine in Louisiana, and so on and so forth. So these are areas where there is a lot going on in particular industries, and where the NSF decided to make further investments to further grow these industries. So for us in upstate New York, we were selected to lead this energy storage engine because of the vast resources that already exist in upstate New York to support energy storage, which you may know about. And if you don't, hopefully you'll learn something here today. But also the potential that we have to further catapult the development of this industry right here. The second cohort of these regional innovation engines were actually just launched earlier this summer. So we now have 12 additional engines throughout the country focusing on different industries. So again, you can take a look at this map and, for example, an engine in the Carolinas around grid modernization, one at UMKC around critical materials in the Kansas City region, and again, so on and so forth. So really incredible work being done by all of these engines at our partner institutions. So our engine, the NSF Energy Storage Engine in Upstate New York, the reason why we were selected to run this engine is that we already have many of the qualities that are needed to run a regional innovation engine in this region. So for example, as you all probably know, we have incredible regional universities in this region and other institutions. The core partners of this engine, you'll see at the bottom, all these logos at the bottom. So Binghamton University, Cornell University, where Maya and I are out of, Rochester Institute of Technology, Syracuse University, did I already say that? And then the other core partners are Griffith Institute and Launch New York and New York Best. But beyond these core partners, we have over 60 partners now that are part of this coalition in industry, academia, community, government, so that we can really be competitive in this industry and grow the energy storage industry in upstate New York. The lead partner institution of the engine is Binghamton University. So all of this is driven by our lead institution, with the core partners doing quite a bit to help move our engine forward. The funding of the NSF is a 10-year project. And we see this as important because you can't build an ecosystem in an industry in a year. So we just started, I say just, in February now, we started our third year of this engine. So I suppose now 2.5 years in. But like I said, it's a 10-year project with $160 million of investment from the National Science Foundation. And then in addition, Empire State Development has made a commitment of an additional $16 million over those 10 years. So it's very exciting work that we're doing. In this map here, you'll see what we call our region of service. So these are the 27 counties that are in this region of service that we deem upstate New York. But you'll see as we go on, we work with folks all over the country. And in particular, we want to bring people to this region. So we do a lot of talking with companies, startups, industry players who are elsewhere, but who may want to come to upstate New York and or use our resources that exist here. And by the way, I can't see everything on my screen, so if there's any issues, feel free to let me know. Okay, great. So in addition to what we're doing, there's more. We have other complementary investments going on in the region that are working toward the same purpose of furthering the energy storage or battery industry in upstate New York. So there's a convening of these investments, such as New Energy New York, that you may be familiar with again, tech hubs by the Department of Commerce, and other investments from the Build Back Better program, and so on and so forth. We also have investments in other important things, such as Battery New York, which is being built in Johnson City, and many other programs going toward, again, growing the energy storage industry here. There's a potential investment of a little over $250 million in various programs, facilities, and infrastructure. So, I mean, this is why upstate New York is becoming the hub for this energy storage innovation. Our mission as an engine and our vision are quite simple: batteries for America by America. And what we hope to do is transform upstate New York into America's battery tech capital. Um, we know that we lost this industry to China many decades ago, or at least part of it. And we also know that the US is really good at developing technology and innovating, but we've lost a lot of the industry, including manufacturing, packaging, that's happening in China, other parts of Asia, and Japan, Korea, et cetera. We need to bring a large portion of this industry back to the US. We know this is a national security priority because of how important it is to get access to critical materials for this type of development, for example, as well as in general, of course, just the US's energy independence, right? So we know that these initiatives are powerful and important for the nation at large. We want to transform upstate New York into being the battery tech capital of the US. And we'll talk about what that means, because it's not necessarily that we want upstate New York to be where all of the gigafactories in the country are built. But instead, we are advocating for innovation, for connectivity to the greater ecosystem, for this technological development, a lot of what's already happening here in innovation. And we believe there's tremendous capacity to do more of it right here. Obviously, the energy storage industry has competition all over the world, but also in the United States. So we are well positioned to lead the US in battery tech development. And why? We have incredible universities, as mentioned. We mentioned our core universities that are part of our initiative, but there are also many, many, many more universities in upstate New York and across New York State and in our ecosystem that are associated with the engine already. We have fantastic startups here. We have fantastic test beds and facilities, which we'll talk more about in a bit. You'll learn more about. We have component assemblers, cell and electrode manufacturers. There's so many other actors in our ecosystem that are necessary for this industry to grow right here in New York. And all of those will help us succeed. From this chart, of course, there's a lot going on and a lot of this development happening in, for example, California with Tesla and many others, with gigafactories in the Carolinas and Nevada. But again, we know what we do well, which is drive innovation and advancements in technology in this region. That's where we're continuing to grow. So how do we do that? A busy slide, but I'll walk you through it. We have fantastic R&D institutions, which we've already discussed. We have dynamic startups that we work with. In upstate New York, we have top-tier infrastructure at the major academic institutions and beyond. We have basic research characterization. We have manufacturing, testing, certification, cell making capabilities in this region. We've been building this testing infrastructure. We mentioned Battery New York, which is currently being built in Johnson City. It's going to be a tremendous resource for the industry. We also have great educational partners, so not just the core partners, but again, community colleges, BOCES, many others that work on workforce development. And all of this is powered by the state and federal programs that we mentioned at the top of this. The other thing that we have are downstream industries that are requiring on the right-hand side here. So downstream industries that we have partnerships with, that we speak to regularly, that require these batteries. So we we speak with partners such as DoD. We hear from the Army, from the Navy. There are requirements of our military that make it such that the development of this industry right here in upstate New York, but in the US, is absolutely critical. It's also important for the military, for example, to be moving toward buying batteries made in America instead of China or abroad. We also work alongside industries working in electric transportation. So, for example, maritime transportation, we're working on a project in commercial forklifts, such as the picture here. We also have very interesting opportunities in our grid to make it more resilient and optimized. Obviously, data centers are on the forefront right now of many a conversation and questions around how is the grid going to be able to handle it? Should we modernize? How do we modernize? And so we certainly think the answer has to be yes, that we need to modernize. And we think that's a fantastic opportunity for energy storage to be a part of that conversation and solution. These are not all of the industries that will benefit, but just a sampling of how important it is for us to be moving forward batteries made in the US. And we know that this requires us looking at it from a very broad perspective. So that's what we're trying to do with the engine. We're not just focusing on materials. We're not just focusing on R&D. This program is under the TIP Directorate of the National Science Foundation. So our mandate goes beyond just research and development to really focus on all of the things that are important for the entire supply chain in order to move innovations forward. So commercialization is a big part of that. We really work to push industry partners to make things commercializable. And we think about all parts of this, right? So how to reduce OpEx and CapEx, new ways of using data in energy storage. We think of recycling. All of this falls under the work that we're doing. And we have a fantastic leadership team to do it. So Meera Sampath is our Chief Executive Officer. She has tremendous experience leading complex projects at Xerox and also major initiatives at Binghamton University. Heidi is our COO. She's a wealth of experience coming from Corning and also working in battery startup. And there are many other individuals here that not only bring R&D experience, but also industry experience as well. So Tim Thomas, for example, is our Chief Workforce Development Officer out of the Griffiths Institute in Rome. Fernando Gomez Vaquero is our Translation Director, Translation and Entrepreneurship, who has also run startups, but also serves as the Director of Runway and Spinouts at Cornell University. Stan Whittingham is our Chief Innovation Officer. And Stan is also a Nobel Prize laureate in chemistry for the lithium-ion battery, but also has a mindset of knowing how we transfer this knowledge into industry, which is what we are trying to do. So we really have a tremendous team who is that are very dedicated to solving these massive challenges that we think about solving every day. If you want a snapshot of how to think about the components of the engine, we like to talk about it in these three main components. So we first have this function of R&D and translation and also entrepreneurship. And all of the work we do in this main function has to do with industry as well as how to develop these technologies and push them toward commercialization, right? So we work a lot in the R&D and translation function with innovative technologies with grant programs helping startups move toward commercialization or tech translation. We then have workforce development, which is a very important need and function for our engine because how are we going to train the next generation of battery manufacturers, technicians, et cetera? So there's a lot of interesting things happening in workforce development that, again, is led by my colleague Tim Thomas at the Griffiths Institute. For example, the workforce development function just launched the Engine Scholars Initiative, which is a workforce program designed to train at least 400 scholars annually for careers in the growing energy storage sector. So tremendous work that we're doing there. Excuse me. We also then have a third function of test beds and infrastructure. A very important component of this work comes from the work we do in test beds and infrastructure and testing. But we know that this is very expensive for any company, but especially a startup with a new technology to build a plant or a pilot scale facility, to build a reactor, and then go to, many different facilities to do it, and then to get certification, et cetera. So what we have been able to build here is a series of how we think of connective tissue that can help serve these purposes. So we have great institutions, as mentioned, Cornell University, Rochester Institute of Technology with the great battery development center located there, Binghamton University with Nexus and other facilities that have just fantastic analytical tools to do this work. Um, if you want to do some cell making, you can go to Battery New York. If you want to do certification, there are places that can happen, such as Intertech. You can build your technology with the infrastructure right here in upstate New York and be able to accelerate your path to the market if you're a startup doing this work. So of course, you'll also need to raise money and get other resources that you need. And the engine has further grown that work with our partnership with Launch New York, who is leading a lot of our investor readiness work. And so we know that all of these components are essential for growing the battery tech capital, and we are doing all of it with many partners coming together. Mentioned testbeds and infrastructure. Here is a map with just some of the resources that exist in this region. You can go to our website that I'm sure Maya put in the chat and see the map of our infrastructure in the southern tier in Western New York specifically. We also work with outfits at other regions in the state, for example, in Albany, where there are great nanofabrication centers. We're working with Brookhaven. If it's in New York and create economic growth, that's fantastic. And we promote these facilities. We also have this one pager available on our website, I believe under the resources, tools and resources tab. This is a comprehensive list of the test beds that exist in this area, organized by type, so to speak. So cell making, metrology, battery testing, safety, with the context and the description of what these facilities do. So take a look at all of these facilities if you are a researcher or a battery innovator or a startup owner who is working in this area. Take a look at all of these facilities and see how we can help. What we really want to do is allow you to do cell making without a huge investment, the metrology and analytical workforce that you need, battery and safety testing to help get you to certification and commercialization faster. So we are meant to be a resource. We want to be available as a resource. Connect with us. It's always a takeaway from these webinars. Please do connect with us and let us know how we can help you, and we will do our best to do so, to help make you connections, et cetera. Over the past 2.5 years now, we've done a ton of work. The whole process of building the ecosystem of energy storage takes a ton of folks coming together. And we have seen this ecosystem grow tremendously just in the past 2.5 years. We've brought in larger industry players who are interested in moving this work forward, such as Toyota Raymond, BAE Systems. We've seen startups do amazing things, such as Bridge Green, Upcycle, Ateos, Elementium. We are seeing a lot of activity. Sometimes there is, of course, in any industry, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But all in all, we are seeing tremendous activity in the region in order to move this work forward. You'll see here, just want to point this out. We also, we talked about R&D, we talked about test beds, we talked about workforce development. Again, we touch every part of the industry. Want to call out here that I believe tomorrow Wednesday, starts our booth at the New York State Fair. So we'll be at the Great New York State Fair up in Syracuse, New York. And the engine has a large booth where we interact with folks in the community, largely New York State residents, but we see folks from beyond. Last year, we reached over 8,000 people at the fair. So if you happen to be at the New York State Fair, please stop by. We have a very cool interactive display where you can put in some information and see what battery resources are located in your region or in any region in upstate New York. So it's a very cool opportunity and way for us to connect with a different type of community, right? And answer questions from folks at the fair. Again, over the past 2 years, we've built a tremendous network, over 60 partners, funded 30 different projects, some in R&D and some on translational startup side. And many of those companies ended up using this money and the results to raise even more money. These startups that we had in our grant programs and our R&D and Super Boost programs in years 1 and 2 raised 20% of all of their funding in the past year alone. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build momentum because we know that we can't do it all, but how can we help fund projects that are meaningful and are going to make a big difference, partner with companies that are going to make a big difference, and then create the momentum that the industry needs to grow beyond just the work that we are doing. We also work, like I said, to attract community members. We're talking about the state fair. We reached, oh, typo here, it should say 8,000 community members reached last year at the New York State Fair. And we know one of the concerns is NIMBYism and communities being concerned with battery safety. So this is part of what we do at our engagements, such as the New York State Fair, is engage with this type of community on battery safety. I think this year we believe we even have a flyer about battery safety and so on and so forth. So what we're trying to do is showcase the possibility of this economic growth, fantastic jobs, safety of the industry to our communities at large. Now we've entered years 3 of the engine. So years 1 to 2 is really focused on this left-hand side. We think about being really technology driven, predominantly startup focused. As we enter year 3 of the engine, which years 3 to 5, we have $45 million investment in those 3 years from the National Science Foundation with matching commitments. What's important to know about this shift, especially for any folks who have worked with us in the first couple of years, is that we like that we've been able to support startups. We like that we've done great research and development projects that are really interesting and have been able to develop what we call leapfrog technologies. So new innovations that really make a difference in the industry, which is critical. But we also want to move in years 3 to 5 toward customer engagement. So we see in years 1 to 2, we saw some customers who would accept a trial and then not make a commitment. So in the next 3 years, what we're doing with our grant projects and some of our other programs, which I'll review in a little bit, is we're focusing on how does the engine become a market maker? And what I mean by that is how are we going to work, or we're already engaging with now, the folks who are actually going to be buying these systems. So larger corporations, right? If you're doing, for example, electric aviation or maritime applications or modernizing grid applications, as we talked about before, talking with actual customers to understand what it is that they actually need and what are the requirements to do this. And then really pushing the startups that we work with to think about this end customer engagement and becoming, as I said, becoming a market maker and the requirements to do it and fitting in where the engine can help to do this. So if you're building a data center or the Department of Defense, like our conversations are, what are the cells and systems that you need? So we're doing this work so we can connect our ecosystem partners to these necessities, but so that we're also the drivers of this ecosystem. The grant programs that we have, I think we'll talk about it in a little bit. But again, as I mentioned, really are focused on reflecting this shift from being a market push of technology to a market pull of really understanding what is going to be purchased by these downstream customers. Now, of course, we didn't invent this. There are other players in upstate New York and beyond that have done tremendous things with this model. So we went and looked at interesting outfits such as, of course, Semitech, who did this type of innovation back in the day, or GTRI, essentially players that acted as a center of gravity to really bring these industry players in to help bring the money flowing here and economic activity here. We know that we can do this because if there's one message, we know that we have the best people in this region to do it. We have tremendous facilities, we have tremendous universities, We know we have tremendous existing industries in the region. We know that New York has incredible people who are innovating all of the time and have been innovating for decades, and it's a great environment to work. And the people here have incredible ability to do this and continue growing this industry. So in the next 3 years, in these years 3 to 5, excuse me, the engine is focusing on these four different thrust areas or areas of expertise. We know that if we're too diluted, we can't focus on what we think is most critical. So these are our core focuses. Number one is safety. We need to build batteries that are absolutely safe. Goes without saying, this could mean new materials. If we think about how we're innovating here, new materials or different types of manufacturing, different types of cell making, packing operations, anything that is related to safety, and we're going to focus. We already are focusing very intently on that side of things. Power engineering. If we create great batteries that can deliver high power, that's essential to our industry. How are you going to transmit that and make sure all systems can handle that load? That also has to do with our powering engineering efforts. How are we going to make sure systems charge in 10 minutes, 6 minutes, less, right? So we look at projects that focus on these objectives. Advanced manufacturing, also, again, critical. What does this mean? Anything that can improve OpEx or CapEx. We know that if you go to China right now, a plant will have a very efficient design, and we're interested in technologies that can half or quarter what exists today. So technologies that can do the same thing, but let's say in the tenth of the CapEx or resources used. So a lot of this has to do with reducing dependence on water, reducing dependence on other materials, going toward dry processing, reducing chemicals, anything that's making manufacturing more efficient. As for AI, you can't really think about this whole revolution or movement of the industry without bringing energy storage into the fold, right? So we're thinking about AI as it relates to energy storage. For example, we know that there are innovators already working on better materials discovery, which is fantastic. What about optimization of a plant? Creating a digital twin of a plant to improve operations. We know that AI can fit into any area of this. So supply chain, recycling, finding resources of materials, et cetera. AI cuts across all of these things, and we're very open to ideas when we are talking about our grant programs. So again, safety, this is not just theoretical. We have started these conversations in safety with folks such as at Toyota Materials Handling, BAE Systems, even with the FDNY. Again, an important aspect of this is reducing NIMBYism. Power engineering, again, went over this, building power systems for energy storage applications that have more power and faster charging. That's an important objective of our industry. So again, having conversations with folks like we did a project with Ioxys, a great partner last year with a Super Boost grant, talking with National Grid. When it comes to advanced manufacturing, again, focusing on a lot of focus here on dry processing, but also technologies that leapfrog current technologies to reduce the use of critical materials, energy, and water. Did projects last year with Ateo Systems, Princeton New Energy with Superboost work, really great work happening there, but also at Kodak and Corning, engaging with these partners and understanding what it is they need to have these advancements in manufacturing. And lastly, AI and energy storage. So AI, again, can be inserted into any area of this. So we think about it in solving problems in materials or manufacturing, but in general, optimization, right? If you've not connected with us yet and have ideas in any of these four areas, please connect with us. That's a large part of what we do, is connect with folks like you and talk about what it is you're doing in the industry and see where we can be slotted in to help. Or vice versa. And so that brings me to our menu of services. I think this has evolved in some ways in the sense that we are very open to how we engage with larger corporations. with regard to how we can assist as an engine, connect you to the right players in the ecosystem that will help you with your particular problems, or things that need solving. But we've developed this menu of services. There's not a single way for us to work together. Again, this is just a sampling. But for example, if we have a larger industry player saying, okay, we have a big unsolved problem, perhaps the engine comes in and can connect you with R&D at great universities. For example, if you're an academic researcher on this call, you can think of the ways where this can be a sponsored research project, for example. The other thing that we are doing is working within technology that needs validation. So for example, for a larger industry player who needs tech validation for a technology they've developed, we can help with sponsoring a project or bringing a startup to you who may be able to serve that need, or working with other suppliers or workforce in our ecosystem to help solve a problem. We also talk a lot and think a lot about consortia, or coalition building. So, for example, you can imagine a consortium around dry manufacturing, for example. This is something that cuts across much of the industry, and certainly in battery manufacturing. You can imagine why a consortium model would be a benefit. Bringing many players together helps solve a problem faster and better in many cases. So. We did a very diligent effort earlier this year to connect with partners to better understand what larger partners really want and what the needs are. Like I said earlier, just moving from this mindset of having a market push to a market pull, so better understanding what the downstream industry needs and wants. And the engine is here to help relay those needs and find solutions. We also have built a couple of cool products that I would implore you to try out. The two that I'll go over today are available on our website for free for anyone to use. Again, I'm sure Maya put our website there in the chat. This first tool I want to go over is what we call the Guardian tool. So it focuses on the two tools I will go over are really focused on commercialization acceleration. But this first tool is a tool that we developed with the MITRE Corporation, and it's a supply chain risk assessment tool. Again, free for anyone to use. And it's for anyone who's interested in better understanding where you are in your supply chain. So how secure or risky is your current operation? Available in these two different TRLs, so TRL 3 to 5 or TRL 6 to 9. We built this with two different pathways because obviously companies that are in these different TRLs have different needs, and are at different stages of their development. So as you respond to the questions in this tool, the tool provides you with feedback and will give you specific recommendations and resources to understand where you are in your supply chain risk, and provide suggestions on how to improve the greatest vulnerabilities you may have. So we want companies to understand the risks in their supply chain, because this is a critical part of commercialization and development. The next tool I'll briefly go over is the New York Best database that existed before the engine, but that the engine has partnered with New York Best on to further augment it and add a tremendous amount of resources to this already fantastic resource of a database of resources in Upstate New York. So this battery and energy storage supply chain and ecosystem resource database is a tremendous wealth of knowledge of all of the resources that exist in Upstate New York and beyond, in the energy storage industry specifically. So we've also added to the database a ton of resources in facilities, in IP, in academic programs, in courses. But also what you'll find in this tool are all of the products, the services that exist in our industry in the region. So you can go in and find a partner that you may need. For example, we also built this AI layer on top of the tool. So you can use the database by filtering over here and searching for your specific needs, or via our website, you can use the AI agent. And for example, in this case, we asked the agent, I have a silicon anode company, I'm looking for testing facilities in Upstate New York. And the tool will give you resources that you need, including if you need contact information and beyond. So please use these tools. They are free and available for anyone to use. And we've built them to help you get the resources that you need to help develop your business. Moving on to our grant program. So I'll cover three of our grant programs, both what we've done in the past and moving forward. So the first I wanted to go over is our Super Boost program. We developed this in phase one of the engine, so the for years 1 to 2, and these grants are focused on commercialization, right? So really focused on tech that was typically in the TRL 3-ish range and helping to advance those companies to get to the TRL 7 ideally, and beyond level TRL more quickly. So these grants were focused on how do we um, help you develop your product more quickly? How do we help you engage with your customer to understand their needs and get that commitment from a customer? So we did 12 of these projects in the first 2 years of the engine, and I'm very excited to say that we are just about to launch phase two of Superboost. So any of you folks out there who maybe were engaged in this program before and are interested in our phase two of this, be on the lookout for that. We'll post it on our website, on LinkedIn. If you're part of our newsletter dissemination, you'll get that. But requirements for the Super Boost in phase one and will be for phase two is the strong customer demand and commitment. So again, we're moving from market push to a market pull, like making sure that there is a real need from a customer and we're helping you fulfill that need. Um, Part of the requirements for all three of these grant programs is that work will be performed in upstate New York, or there are other financial contributions in upstate New York. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, what we're trying to do is develop the industry right here. The next program I want to go over is the MegaBoost Technology Translation Program. And MegaBoost is a little bit different, which is that it's meant to be a market making program. So the funding for MegaBoost is anywhere from $500 to $1 million. And these are purpose-built to catalyze large-scale, high impact, market-ready projects. So in developing a Mega Boost proposal, we we look for a strong industry demand. We look for partnerships. So that's an important, not just important, it's an essential component of Mega Boost is that there is a partnership, but often between a smaller company and a larger industry player. Again, we look for tech focuses in safety, AI, power engineering, or advanced manufacturing, but that is often the case with innovations in energy storage. I think that covers a large portion of what we're doing in this industry. And again, we look for these contributions to upstate New York. I'll go over in a moment how you can apply to any of these programs. The third grant program that we have is what we call the R&D Manufacturing Readiness Challenge. And this is a grant program for $200,000 to $600,000 over 1 to 3 years. In this phase of the engine, there will be 3 to 4 projects selected. And this is aimed at accelerating the scale up of next generation battery technologies. So again, focused on addressing these critical barriers. Dry processing is a big focus, non-toxic, PFAS-free, so on and so forth. All of these programs Superboost is coming soon. So again, be on the lookout for that. But we are accepting preliminary proposals still on a rolling basis for both the Mega Boost Technology Translation Program and what we call the MRC, the Manufacturing Readiness Challenge. I'm sure Maya's dropped it in the chat, but if you'd like more information about these programs, you can go to our website. You can email us. We often get on the phone with folks to talk through these programs, the objectives, to talk through what you're thinking of for your proposal, right? So we're agile. We're happy to speak with you. We're happy to help think through your partners and your plan. So feel free to email us and we can set something up. For the preliminary proposals, you'll see in the requirements doc, but what we look for is a very brief 1 to 3 page max overview of what you're looking to do before we move into a full proposal stage. So we want to hear your ideas. We don't need a full proposal for your initial application. We just want to hear from you of what you're trying to do, how it's going to catapult the industry forward, and how it's going to be critical for the industry and what the contributions are to the upstate New York region. So again, Mega is really focusing on that partnership, market making opportunities, the manufacturing readiness challenge, really looking for innovations in manufacturing in the industry. And Superboost is really in that middle commercialization, customer commitment side of things. So thank you. We hope you're part of our future. We want upstate New York to be America's battery tech capital, and we need everyone here to help us do that. So please connect with us. I'll stop sharing my screen now to take a look at the Q&A, but connect with us here. Oh, you know what, Maya? Let's put our other email address in the chat. I forgot to change this here. You can obviously contact NSF Engine at binghamton.edu, but we also have our specific translation email address that is in the chat to connect with us directly with this team. Connect with us on LinkedIn. We post a lot of updates on our LinkedIn page. So events that we're running, programs that we're launching, we use it as a big marketing tool. So please follow us on LinkedIn. And with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll go head to the Q&A. All right, one moment.